Good morning, everyone. Happy Dhanteras to all of you. It's good to see that we all are giving a lot of importance to knowledge, especially on a festive time. That shows how committed we are to our field that we are in, and also how committed we are towards wealth creation for our clients and for ourselves, right? So, all the best. Just wanted to do a quick check the last chapters that we covered. So we covered chapter number 1, 2, and 3, if I recall correctly. Take the most important chapters from exam point of view. So what we will do is we will take chapter number 12, which carries 15 marks, and then we will go to chapter number 4 and 5. That is about 10 marks. So 20 marks plus this 15. So 35 marks is what I'm aiming at today. Taxation, I will quickly cover. There is few things only that is asked. वो मैं फटाफट आप लोग के साथ कवर करूंगी. तो 4 मार्क वहाँ का भी कहीं जाना नहीं चाहिए, right? If time permits, then we will go to 9 chapter, that is investor services. See, ये सब theoretical है. Chapter 7, 5, sorry, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 9, 10 and 11 is all theoretical. Having said that, jitna mere se possible hai, I will try to cover it. Don't worry. I will, if possible, I will take investor service also today. So I have a hard stop at 12:30. So this chapter number 12, it is an application of the chapter that we covered, that is chapter number 2. Chapter number 2, we covered what are the different types of fund. We covered what are the different type of equity fund, debt fund and hybrid fund. ये तीनों का कैटेगरी हमने समझा, okay? And we saw कि हर एक फंड अलग क्यों है और what is the reason behind it. We try to understand that. So in this chapter, it is more of an application kind of. So if a client comes to you, you should know how to understand the client's need, how to know what is his risk profile, how to identify that, and based on that, how we are going to recommend what type of fund is what we will be covering in this chapter. This chapter is very, very important. What are the typical questions that comes from this? So, एक होता है asking you all to find out कि कौन सा fund किसके लिए suitable है. Okay, so questions will be on that. Second is they will ask you on which among the following funds, or they will ask you arrange these funds in the order of their risk in terms of credit risk, and then they will give you a list of fund, and you will have to write, like for example, A, B, C, D is there. Then one option is A, D, C, B. Like that combination will be given. आप लोग को वो अरेंज करके देना होगा. तो एक हाईएस्ट रिस्क आ सकता है, लीस्ट रिस्क आ सकता है ना, और इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिटर्न भी आ सकता है. So these are how the questions will be framed in this chapter. So meanwhile, when I'm taking the session, of course, I'll tell you all. If we have to compare, like what fund to be given, or how do you suggest what fund need to be taken based on investors' need, preference, and risk profile is what we will see now. Okay. So if we have to see the investors' need, so it will depend upon what is their investment objective, what is the time frame for which they are looking for investing in a particular fund, right? So all these things need to be considered when we are looking at investors' need. Yeah. So is he looking for a long-term appreciation? Is he looking for something of a safer instrument? Or is he, what is his goal? Even if the slight of a goal is there, that also shouldn't be missed. So these things you will have to speak to the client and get more needy, right? So many a time client may not know what their needs are. They will straight away, so usually it is like a goal for planning a house, a child's education, retirement, and maybe buying a car or a vacation. So usually people come with 5 or 6 goals, but as a financial advisor, it is our step to to make them aware what are their financial goals, है ना? वो आपको identify करना होगा in such a way that not even one single or a small goal is also missed. Okay. Then comes the next one, that is the risk profile of the investor, of the client. So when it comes to risk, we need to see three aspects. One is the need to take risk. Second is the ability to take risk. And the third is the willingness to take risk. So I might have the need to take risk. I might have the ability to take risk, but not necessarily I will have the willingness to take risk. Yeah? That is also very important. So when you understand this factor as to उनका risk profile क्या है, investment risk that is associated with a mutual fund scheme can be decided, can be understood, and you will do asset allocation for your client. So risk profiling of an investor is very important. And post that, once you understand that, you will do the asset allocation for the client. So what is asset allocation? So I had told you in the first chapter, if I recall correctly, two type of asset allocation we had introduced. One was strategic asset allocation and tactical asset. तो strategic asset allocation में हमने देखा था कि if a person is there, we will do the risk profile, we will see what are his goals, और उस हिसाब से हम एक percentage allocate करेंगे कि each and every asset class, and that is usually constant, except that timely जब हम वापस उनको review करेंगे, we will change it. Otherwise, it is usually going to be almost similar, right? So accordingly, we will do an asset allocation. So for example, if an investor is there, he may be seeking growth and they are willing to take risk, right? But unless there is a long-term investment horizon, the equity will not be suitable for that. So for example, let's say I'm a very risk-taking person. I'm willing to get an instrument wherein मुझे capital appreciation हो. But let's say मेरा goal है for my child's education in after 3 years. Okay, let's say his graduation is there after 3 years. I want the money for that, right? So मैं willing तो हूँ, मेरे पास risk taking capacity भी है, but I cannot invest into equity. Why? Because after 3 years, if market comes down, तो मैं बच्चे को बोल नहीं सकता बेटा 2 साल के बाद ग्रेजुएशन करो, है ना? तो आपको ये चीज समझना चाहिए, right? So over the long term, the volatility somehow gets smoothened out, you know. So if you are looking at equity, so it is for a long term is what we have seen. अब आप asset allocation करने के लिए there are few things that we need to take into consideration. So first being the age of an investor, right? So age is very important criteria, and let me tell you, not necessary कि somebody is young तो आप उसको equity देंगे, नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं, right? आपको देखना होगा कि उसकी risk taking capacity क्या है, right? Usually it is young investor who has a potential for taking higher risk than compared to that of a old people, right? However, we will have to evaluate whether he or she is capable, or his other goals and other criteria is suited for taking that high risk or not. Yeah. तो मेरे को एक क्वेश्चन आया था एग्जाम में. Please don't quote me anywhere for the question that I'm telling you all. It was like Ajay and, for example, okay, Ajay and Ram are of age 27. Both are working in an IT firm and both have similar salary. Will the risk-taking capacity for both the person be same? Not necessarily, yes. So even though if the age is same, so high chances are there that risk-taking capacity will be different. Why? Because somebody will be there, he must be having a lot of responsibilities. He must be having a family to take care, or he must be having some other commitments, right? So not necessary the age being same, the risk appetite will be the same. Okay, please remember this one question had come in one of my paper, right? Second is the investment time horizon that is available. So if you have longer time with you, of course you will be able to take higher risk, because eventually if market falls also, it will recover, right? So you get, when the market falls, you will be getting more number of units, and with the more number of units, you will be able to recover faster, because when the market picks up, these units will help you in getting richer faster, right? So based on that, ideally, we should consider two type of uh, asset allocation, or rather the portfolio should be divided into two parts, or considered as to two parts. One is a core portfolio and the another is satellite portfolio. Okay. So if you all recall, chapter 1 में हमने देखा था strategic asset allocation and tactical. Something similar to that is this, except that words are little different. Okay. So core portfolio जो है, it is similar to that of a strategic asset allocation. इसमें क्या होता है? You look at the long-term need of a person, you look at the goal of an investor, and accordingly, what you're making is nothing but your core portfolio or your strategic asset allocation, जिसको हमने कहा था. Tactical asset allocation और strategic portfolio is nothing but short term जो market में movement आता है, उसके हिसाब से आप एक decision लेते हो उस short term period के लिए, that is considered as satellite portfolio or tactical asset. This is very, very important. 100% you will get one question from this. Okay? एक इस पे आता है और एक systematic and unsystematic. I'll explain that, but this is very important. You know? So if you see diversified equity fund, large cap fund, mid cap fund, among others, they form a part of our core portfolio since they generate long-term return, right? When we are aligning that with a broader market, right? But sector fund, on the other hand, it will do well cyclically. So, or for a particular period, like of late, we are all talking about consumption sector, right? So this is something which will come and will perform on a periodic basis, on a cyclical basis is what it is going to perform, right? So accordingly, we will define what the kind of portfolio will be. And always remember, we will come back to our core portfolio, which or the satellite portfolio, which we have designed for our client, right? And this, core portfolio or strategic asset allocation, which we have designed for our client. Now, this is something that we need to keep into mind. Now coming to the hierarchy, the risk level of a mutual fund, right? We have already seen what are the categories of fund. जब हमने second chapter cover किया था, तो हमने different categories of ये देखा था, right? अब if we have to cover this based on the risk and return, so सबसे least risk जिसमें है, that is liquid fund, then comes a debt fund, then comes a hybrid fund, and then comes the equity fund. You know, of course, the highest return that you can expect is in the equity fund, then hybrid fund, then debt fund, and liquid fund. Yeah, please remember this. This chapter particularly looks very, very easy because we will all say कि हाँ ये तो पता ही है, right? But the fact is, when it comes to solving, कहीं ना कहीं लोग mistake करते हैं. This is what I have observed, है ना? So please read the question also clearly here. What is it they have asked? They are asking in terms of the return. Are they asking in terms of the risk, or are they asking in terms of the return? है ना? ये आपको ध्यान से पढ़ के आपको एग्जाम में आंसर करना है. Now, if you have to compare with respect to that of a risk return hierarchy for the debt fund, then how it looks. Overnight fund, the least risky one, because इसमें जो investment होता है, amount is parked into those categories which will mature within 1 day. है ना? Then comes liquid fund, again the least risky one, 91 days का है.
right? And then it goes on and on, ultra short duration, low duration, then short duration, medium to long duration, and long duration fund, right? So this is how the risk return is arranged. आपको ये देखना है एग्जाम में लीस्ट टू हाईएस्ट लिखा है या हाईएस्ट टू लीस्ट लिखा है, ओके? आपको ये देखना है रिस्क टू रिस्क लिखा है या रिटर्न लिखा है, right? All these things you need to be considerate when you're writing the paper. Also, one more thing which I have observed is, so everybody understand overnight liquid and long duration. इसके बीच में जो terms है, that is where people get confused. So please check that also. Yeah. Next is with respect to the credit risk. When it comes to the credit risk of a fund, which one is more risky is what we have put over here. The least risk is that of a gilt fund. Gilt fund क्यों? क्योंकि वो government backed है. Government is the one or government securities में invest करता है. So when it is invested in government security, the chances of default is very, very minimal. Then comes banking and PSU fund. Those funds, those bonds or instruments that are issued by banks and PSUs comes under this. Then comes corporate bond fund. हमने क्या देखा था corporate bond fund का? Can anyone put corporate bond fund में कौन सा paper है? Can anyone put in the chat box? Banking and PSU funds, banking PSU bond जो issue करते हैं वहां पे invest करते हैं. What about corporate bonds, corporate funds? See, I gave away the answer. Corporate fund invest in corporate bonds, है ना? AA+ rating वाले bonds पे ही invest करता है. So when it is AA+, the risk is relatively much lesser, है ना? And then comes the credit risk fund. Credit risk fund means AA+ is in corporate bond and AA के नीचे जो है AA and below will comes under credit risk fund. So which means that ये fund में थोड़ा सा risk है, risk ज्यादा है, so आपको return भी ज्यादा मिलने का chances है, right? Then comes the next criteria when it comes to equity fund. I hope everybody is clear. Anybody has any doubt, please feel free to ask her. In terms of the equity fund, okay, the least of the risk being in the highest risk being in the small cap fund, then come mid cap fund, then come multi cap fund, then come large and mid cap fund and large cap. So यहाँ पे flexi cap नहीं डाला हुआ है, so flexi cap will come below multi cap. So if I have to arrange it, it will be small cap, mid cap, flexi cap, then multi cap, then large and mid cap, then large cap. Anyone, any doubt? This is very important. This comes in exam. Any doubt, anyone, please keep asking me. Otherwise, I'll not see, since it's an online session, I will really not come to know whether you have any doubt. And when it comes to diversified to concentrated funds, when it comes to the risk and return hierarchy, the diversified fund comes first, then comes focus fund, then comes thematic funds, and then comes sector fund. Okay. So diversified funds will have, उसमें क्या होता है? There are multiple sectors in that, right? So if one sector is not performing, the other will be performing. There are multiple stock in this, you know. Focus fund, however, please remember this. This is very important. Focus fund में कितना stocks होता है? Anyone put in the chat box? How many stocks are there in the focus fund? 30. Very good. Thank you, Tapas. So 30 stocks are there in the focus fund. And this 30 stocks can be from various sectors, correct? There is no compulsion that it will be from this sector, that sector. No, it can be from any sector. One. So here again, the diversification is relatively much better. Then comes thematic fund. Thematic fund means it is based on a theme. Like for example, infrastructure fund. Okay. So infrastructure is actually a theme. Why? Because infrastructure में आपको metal आएगा, cement आएगा, road आएगा, railway आएगा, port आएगा. You will have paints in that. You will have IT in that. You will have banking in that. So this is a huge composition of all many sectors. अगर एक sector यहाँ पे भी चला नहीं, so there is another thing that will be taking care of it. The last is the sector fund. Sector one fund will have only one sector. For example, banking sector or let's say IT sector. Banking sector में सिर्फ banking का stocks है. IT sector में सिर्फ IT का stocks है. So if that sector is not going to do well, then what will happen? The entire thing will fall. है ना? So this is very, very important. ये exam में आता ही है. Whatever I'm covering this is very important. Please remember. When it comes to hybrid category, we can arrange this into the least risk being arbitrage fund, then equity saving fund, then conservative hybrid fund, then dynamic asset allocation fund, multi-asset allocation fund, balanced hybrid fund, and aggressive hybrid fund. So these are how you can see these funds based on the risk and the return. You know? This is also very important. This also comes in the exam. You know? So please remember this. Then comes how do you define the risk. So this is slightly old. There is also one category called very high risk. Okay. So what I have observed in exam is they ask you the definition of these. For example, what is moderately low means? So what does moderately high means? Okay. So moderately low means principal at moderately low risk. Moderately high means principal at moderately high risk. So you need to remember the terminology for this. You know, this is also important from exam point of view. So riskometer has 6 parameters, that is low risk, low to moderate risk, moderately high risk, and very high risk. So you need to know the terminology for this. Okay. Also, so what each category means, that is again something that you should remember. I think that is enough for that. Yeah. Now, based on scheme selection, based on investment strategy of a fund. So how will you select a fund based on the investment strategy of the mutual fund is what we are going to understand here. Okay. So one is, first of all, you will look at the investment objective. एक फंड का इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है हम वो देखेंगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी क्या है देखेंगे, और पोर्टफोलियो का जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है ये क्या है हम देखेंगे. So these are the 3 main things that are there when we are looking at a mutual fund selection: investment objective, investment strategy, and what is the portfolio characteristics. है ना. तो हमने ऑलरेडी देखा था हर एक फंड का एक इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव है. हर एक का अभी अगर आप देखोगे इक्विटी का ही, इक्विटी में क्या, इक्विटी फंड का क्या है कि हाईएस्ट कैपिटल अप्रिसिएशन एंड प्रॉफिट जनरेशन, समथिंग लाइक दैट, लेट्स से इज अ इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव. है ना. लेकिन ये सेम इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव पाने के लिए हर एक एएमसी, हर एक फंड का एक अलग इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी होगा. राइट. और ऑफ कोर्स ये स्ट्रैटेजी को फुलफिल करने के लिए जो पोर्टफोलियो जो कंस्ट्रक्ट करेंगे उसका जो criteria hai, that will be different, right? So there is a relation between all these 3, right? Now, so accordingly there will be different strategy adopted, different style that will be adopted, and each of them will have a different risk and return characteristics. Okay. Now, investor who want to invest in a low risk equity, probably they will consider something like maybe index fund or a value fund. अगर कोई investor है and they are ready to take little higher risk, then probably they will look for something like growth fund. है ना. अगर एक investor है, he want debt and he want slightly better risk, better return, then probably he will look at something called hybrid. Now, let's understand what are the different criteria which investor will look for select. One is active fund and passive fund. तो हमने देखा था ये passive fund क्या होता है, active fund क्या होता है in our second chapter. Passive fund is relatively suited for investors looking for exposure to asset class without risk associated with fund manager selection and strategies. तो passive fund में fund manager का selection और strategies को हम मान्य नहीं रखते हैं because it is going to copy or rather it is going to be similar to that of a बेंचमार्क, जो भी उनका बेंचमार्क रहेगा. फॉर एग्जांपल निफ्टी 50 है तो निफ्टी 50 में जो परसेंटेज दिया है हर एक स्टॉक को वही सेम परसेंटेज यहाँ पे भी आपको दिखेगा, राइट. सो इसमें जो रिटर्न भी आएगा दैट विल बी इन लाइन विथ वॉट एवर दैट इंडेक्स. ओके, so basically they invest in a portfolio that mimics a market index in the securities it invests in and in weightage allocated to each securities in the portfolio. अगर Reliance का let's say 3% है तो यहाँ पे भी 3% हो, right? तो यहाँ पे there is no selection risk in index because fund manager has no role in creating the portfolio, right? That is why अगर आप देखोगे इसमें जो cost है, cost in the index fund is relatively much lower also, right? याद रखना exchange traded funds, they are also passive funds that generate return in line with the index or a benchmark. Okay, so there is no investment strategies that are used to generate higher return other than what the index does. जो index करेगा वही same strategy ETF में भी होगा. Like for example gold ETF, जो gold जैसे गोल्ड चलेगा वही वैसे ही ये फंड भी चलेगा, राइट. इसमें और कोई क्राइटेरिया नहीं हो, राइट. प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एक्टिव फंड ऑन द अदर हैंड, द फंड मैनेजर इज trying to create an alpha year by choosing as to where to invest, right? What strategy need to be done. The objective is always to beat the benchmark, to make. तो इसके लिए तो कहीं ना कहीं इन्वेस्टर ऑल्सो बिलीव्स दैट कि फंड मैनेजर का जो एक्टिव स्कीम सिलेक्शन है या स्टॉक सिलेक्शन है, इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर देम टू गेट अ हायर रिटर्न. हाउएवर, हैविंग सेड दैट, देयर इज नो मींस टू से दैट यू विल गेट 100% higher return, है ना. So the quantum of risk is higher in such investment over here, right? So please remember this. Okay. So these are the things you should remember when it comes to active or passive. Then another things that we look into is open-ended fund or a close-ended fund. So what is this? We have already seen, right? It is more to do with an operational feature. So when I say operational feature, means like exit option, है ना. So if you have to compare open-ended and a closed-ended fund, open-ended fund में liquidity ज़्यादा, right? When you want to sell, you can sell it आराम से. But on the other hand, closed-ended fund में it is you need to have somebody who is going to buy for you. So here, that is why it is listed in stock exchange, है ना. लेकिन अगर वो फंड जो है वो स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में लिस्टेड है लेकिन एक्टिवली ट्रेडेड नहीं है, then there is a chance of liquidity risk over here, right? तो ये आपको याद रखना. Open-ended fund, you should remember that it is also subject to risk of large fluctuation, right? Why? Because there could be a chance of heavy sale or a repurchase, है ना. So when that is there, कहीं ना कहीं it put a pressure on the fund manager to maintain the investment portfolio. So that kind of risk is there in an open-ended fund, but that is not there in a closed-ended fund, you know. Also, if you recall, we have discussed about one question in second chapter, जहाँ पे हमने ये डिस्कस किया था कि क्लोज-एंडेड फंड में इसका जो प्राइस है, जो यूनिट का जो प्राइस है, ये स्टॉक एक्सचेंज में लोअर भी हो सकता है, हायर भी हो सकता है एनएवी से, है ना. ये हमने लास्ट टाइम कवर किया था. दिस इज अगेन वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. You need to remember this. This can come in the exam. Okay. This all we have. This we have discussed. Still, just a quick recap. We have already discussed focus fund. So if you have to define various fund based on the risk and all, right? सबसे least risk है diversified fund because वहाँ पे multiple sector का exposure है, right? Sector fund on another hand, it is there for a like particular sector. तो इसमें भी risk का chances बहुत high है. Yeah. When it comes to focus fund, it is only for 30 stocks. But having said that, 30 stocks from different sector, right? So compared to diversified fund, focus fund is relatively higher risk because दोनों के category में diversified fund and in focus fund there is different sector. But diversified fund में क्या है? बहुत सारा stock हो सकता है. यहाँ पे maximum stock that can come in a focus fund is that of 30 stocks, right? 30 stock is what the maximum stock that will be there. But diversified fund में there is no restriction as to आपके पास इतना ही होना चाहिए. It can be 50, it can be 100, it can be more than that. So the concentration risk is relatively lesser in that of the diversified, right? And okay, this you have understood. So what is the difference between a different type of equity fund is what we are put over here. So again, every fund will have a different theme. So accordingly, what is suited for which investor, accordingly you will invest into that particular fund, right? So whether it is a large cap, whether it is a mid cap, so all that will depend on what is your or what is the client selection criteria, right? So we all understood what is the market capitalization. Market capitalization के हिसाब से large cap होगा, mid cap होगा, small cap होगा. अब इसमें भी मुझे कितना रिस्क लेना है will define whether I am putting into a large cap fund or a large and mid cap fund, है ना? So if I want slightly higher risk and the safety, then I will put into large and mid cap fund. If I want complete safety, right, then probably I will look at large cap fund, right? So we all know large cap funds are large cap stocks are relatively more stable. Their revenues are relatively stable, right? Profitability is much better, right? So all these things we will take into consideration when we are putting into which category of fund. Now, if you have to compare between multi-cap fund and a flexi-cap fund, okay? Multi-cap fund, in this, the investment is across the market capitalization spectrum, okay? So why? Because the fund manager is trying to they give you benefit of various opportunities in the market. At the same time, keeping lower risk than the mid cap and small cap fund. So similarly, so what happens over here is you have 25% in large cap, 25 in mid cap, and 25 in small cap. So kahin na kahin, you are getting an exposure to all the category of market capitalization. But if you see a large cap and mid cap fund, right, these are riskier than large and mid cap fund are riskier than that of a large cap funds, but less riskier than a mid cap funds. You know? Flexi cap funds, it gives the fund manager the freedom to maneuver across the market cap. So only slight difference between flexi cap fund and a multi cap fund is that flexi cap fund में fund manager के ऊपर flexibility है कि बस मुझे large cap में ज्यादा होना चाहिए या mid cap में होना चाहिए या small cap. अगर fund manager को लग रहा है कि market volatile है, तो probably he will shift more towards the large cap criteria, right? अगर उनको लग रहा है कि market अभी अच्छा चलने वाला है, probably he will shift towards the mid cap and small cap, right? The investor, if they need to generate higher return and if they have a risk taking capacity also time horizon is there with them, then they should allocate their fund with respect to all these things. When they are taking into consideration is where they need to park their money, right? राइट ये सारा चीज एक एक इन्वेस्टर को कंसिडर करके ही इन्वेस्टमेंट करना चाहिए. प्लस एज अ फंड, एज अ financial advisor, कहीं ना कहीं you also need to give all these perspective to the clients while suggesting them what can be, what should be taken. We have already discussed growth and value previously, but just a quick recap, right? We all know that the fund manager, they can adopt different style for selecting a stock. Growth भी ले सकता है या value style भी ले सकता है, right? So fund that follow growth strategy, what it seeks is to identify those companies that are expected to grow at rate higher than that of average economic growth rate. Now, the stock of such companies, what they do is they tend to do well when the market is in a bull phase, right? This comes in exam, please remember. But when the market is in a downtrend, the price of the stock, they tend to fall much more over here, right? Making that time this becomes riskier, right? So growth stock, when the market is in a bull phase, it tends to do well. When market is in a downside, it becomes riskier and the high chances are that it can fall. Okay. Value stock, however, these are the stock that uh, uh, that are available at a price that are cheaper than its value. Okay, so the value cannot be is not unlocked now. It should be unlocked in future. All right. So over the time, if fund manager is able to select a right stock and the stock is recognized in the market, then what happens? The value appreciates, the price goes up. You know. So growth fund outperform the bull market, while value orientation help the value fund to outperform in the falling market. You know, this we need to remember. Now, depending on the risk profile of the client, of the investor, both these type of funds, this can be a part of a core portfolio of an investor, but in a suitable proportion. मतलब जितना उनको प्रोपोर्शनेट होना चाहिए फंड में, मतलब पोर्टफोलियो में, उस हिसाब से उनको इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए, राइट? ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, over a longer period of time, investment in value funds yield benefit over when you are putting it for a longer period of time. Yeah. International. Anyone, any doubt? I'm going a little faster, but see, I don't come to know whether you all have a doubt. So please put in the chat box if there is any doubt. Huh? Business cycle, which one? Business cycle, which one? What is business cycle? Tapas, what is your question? I did not understand. Business cycle, which one? Are you asking about sector fund? Okay. So it depends. Whether, see, now, for example, with the benefit of GST, with the tax application, new tax benefit that are there, so suddenly the consumption is at a hit now. You know? So are you asking that? So in a criteria like this, probably we will look at a theme like consumption. So sector fund, probably, let's say, uh, some, like for example, this Trump and this tariff that is happening, like a sector like IT will look little challenging. Yeah. So probably you may not want to venture into a fund like that. You know? So here you will not consider sector. Okay. So I think this is what you are asking. I couldn't understand your question much. I'm hoping either यही आप पूछ रहे थे. So let's come to international for equity fund. So when an Indian investor, when he invests in equities abroad, so ideally he is taking two exposure. An exposure to international equity market, at the same time, an exposure to exchange rate of goods. So if an investor is investing in US, right, and the US dollar becomes stronger during this period of his investment, right, he benefits. However, अगर dollar weaken होता है, right, he loses, or his portfolio return will be low, है ना? So taking this kind of exposure is possible and convenient through equity, through international equity funds, which invest into stock of companies listed in stock exchange that are located outside India. Right? But investor must consider few reasons as to why for any investment when they are putting into investment account. One, the overall return that should be attractive. That is international equity plus the exchange trade movement, right? An asset allocation calls for a diversifying investment to reduce the risk. Such schemes also provides a way to benefit for a particular opportunity and therefore is best suited to be a part of a satellite portfolio of an investor. A very small exposure should be there in the core portfolio just to give you the benefit of diversification. मतलब अगर आपको लग रहा है कि हाँ एक पर्टिकुलर मार्केट अगर अभी कम हो गया है उसका एक्सपोजर, then that is where he or she should park in the international take exposure over the international equity fund. As I said, two things need to be consideration: the appreciation and also the currency movement. Now, fixed maturity plans. So basically, these are close-ended debt funds, and यहाँ पे this is ideal for investor. Investment is in line with the maturity of the scheme. तो अगर मेरा कोई goal है, let's say within for the next 3 years, 3 years जैसे end होएगा, I will need this money. So I will park my money into that instrument which will give me that maturity over that particular period. So here the return is generally, it is better than that of a fixed deposit, right? Having said that, credit risk of a portfolio should be considered, right? So investment in fixed maturity plan, it cannot be redeemed before the maturity of the scheme, except through stock exchange. So अगर मैंने कोई ऐसा scheme लिया, let's say 5 years का या 7 years का, if it is maturing in that time, I have to take only for that maturity period. अगर मुझे उससे पहले exit करना है, तो I can sell it in stock exchange, provided there is a buyer for that. तो इसमें जब भी आप इन्वेस्ट करोगे, आपको ध्यान रखना है कि इसमें लिक्विडिटी इनफ है कि नहीं, बिकॉज लिक्विडिटी रहेगा तो ही आप इसमें से एग्जिट कर पाओ, करेक्ट? सो दैट इज वन थिंग दैट वी नीड टू कीप इन टू माइंड. सो नहीं तो इट इज बेटर यू look at open-ended fund than this kind of fund. Short duration, as we all know, it is for 1 to 3 years. Is where the volatility is relatively much lower. The risk is also much lower. Liquid fund is for those who are looking for relatively much lower risk and at the same time the return is relatively much lesser, because इनका जो investment period है, it is for usually for 91 days. So let's say आपके पास कोई fund आया है, let's say you sold a house and you don't know which fund to buy. Till that time you want to keep that, park that money somewhere, then probably liquid fund is where you should park your money. Then comes floater fund. Floater fund, as the name suggests, invest in floating rate instrument. Since floating rate debt securities tend to hold investment if there is an interest rate fluctuation, then of course the NAV of the floater tends to move up and down, you know. So you need to understand as to why somebody is investing into this category of funds rather than just blindly taking it, right? Then comes hybrid scheme. This is relatively much simpler for investors. Somebody who wants to have a mixture of both debt and equity, that is when they park their money into hybrid scheme. So you have equity exposure at the same time safety aspect given from the debt category, you know, which gives you a lower risk, right? So ideally somebody who is just coming to market, introducing themselves first time to the market, to don't take them directly to equity fund, rather take them through a hybrid fund that will give them a relatively better experience, right? Gold funds. So investor, first of all, they need to understand what is the difference between gold ETF and gold sector fund. ये आपको क्वेश्चन आ सकता है, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, है ना. गोल्ड सेक्टर फंड जो होता है, they invest in shares of gold mining and gold processing companies. Please remember, gold sector fund में वो शेयर्स में इन्वेस्ट करता है जो गोल्ड माइनिंग और गोल्ड प्रोसेसिंग कंपनीज में होता है, राइट? सो the performance of these gold sector fund is linked to the profitability of the gold of these companies, है ना. तो अगर अगर इनका परफॉर्मेंस अच्छा है, इनका प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी अच्छा है, देन दिस गोल्ड सेक्टर फंड विल परफॉर्म. बट गोल्ड ईटीएफ्स जो है, इसका मूवमेंट इट इज डायरेक्टली proportional to that of the price of gold. जब gold as a metal, इसका प्राइस जब इंक्रीज होगा, then the gold gold ETF will go up, है ना. So you need to understand the difference between both, okay. अगर गोल्ड कंपनीज में जो इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, लाइक गोल्ड सेक्टर फंड में, है ना, अगर उस कंपनी का प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी अच्छा है, देन दैट इज व्हेन दैट फंड विल परफॉर्म, right? So please understand the difference between this had come in one of the paper recently, right? Gold ETF, they park the money into gold. It will, the price movement will be similar to that of a gold metal price, you know. So please remember this when you're writing it. Okay. Selection of mutual fund scheme offered by different AMC and within the scheme category. So आपको क्या क्या चीज consider करना चाहिए when you are selecting an AMC and within the scheme category. Okay. So different AMC has different approaches, style and value when they are doing business. So for example, Nippon India Mutual Fund है. So we have a very strict criteria that हम लोग हमारा process को बहुत seriously follow करते हैं. So most of the fund, if you see in Nippon India, we have something called fund casing, है ना. तो जिसमें हमको बताया गया है कि फंड मैनेजर को कि आपको ये प्रोसेस फॉलो करना है. That is why most of our fund, you will see that it is consistent in performance, right? So when you're selecting an AMC, you need to see what is the style they have approach. हमारा आपको फंड ऐसा नहीं मिलेगा कि एक साल बहुत अच्छा कम परफॉर्म किया, उसके नेक्स्ट ईयर बहुत कम परफॉर्म किया. नो, what we believe is we want consistency in all our fund, है ना. So objective क्या है? So we will not take very undue risk to get higher return, you know. So you need to see what is that AMC's objective, right? Now मैचिंग फंड्स पोर्टफोलियो विद इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव, ये तो हमने कई बार डिस्कस किया. इट्स वेरी सिंपल, राइट. कहीं ना कहीं इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव देखना जरूरी है, एंड ये भी देखना जरूरी है कि बॉस मेरा जो रिक्वायरमेंट है उस हिसाब से ये मैनेज हो रहा है कि नहीं. ओके. देन यू विल सी द फंड मैनेजर, ये कौन है, राइट? व्हाट इज द फंड मैनेजर्स क्वालिफिकेशन, व्हाट इज हिज स्टाइल, है ना. ये सब आप कंसिडर करना प्रेफर करोगे, राइट? यू विल वांट टू सी कि हाउ लॉन्ग ही इज बीन मैनेजिंग, राइट? सो how many funds he is managing, and whatever fund he is managing, what is a performance, what is the criteria behind his selection, है ना? ये सब आप देखोगे. Second is funds performance. So कई बार fund performance becomes one of the primary criteria for uh, selecting any fund, है ना? So return that fund has generated relative to the benchmark, है ना? This is evaluated over a period of time. अगर वो benchmark से ज्यादा रिटर्न दे पाया, अल्फा रिटर्न दे पाया, तो ही वो फंड बेटर कहलाया जाता है, राइट? Then only we say it has outperformed the benchmark, right? Now the thing is, बहुत सारे फंड्स बुल मार्केट में बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म कर सकते हैं, but in a falling market, how much is your fund falling? That is also very important. फंड का जो फॉलिंग मार्केट में कितना नीचे गिर रहा है वो भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. दैट इज वाई जब आप इक्विटी फंड कंसिडर करोगे तो आप पोर्टफोलियो लॉन्गर पीरियड का देखना प्रेफर करोगे, लाइक एटलीस्ट 5 years, राइट? So while for a long-term debt, at least 3 years performance need to be considered. For short-term funds, shorter period performance is suitable. तो आप हर एक फंड को सेम नजरिया से नहीं देखोगे. जैसे इक्विटी का 5 साल एंड अबव है, डेट का 3 year एंड अबव है, शॉर्ट टर्म का जो टाइम फ्रेम है उस हिसाब से आप चेक करोगे, राइट? एंड ऑफ कोर्स इसके साथ आप उसकी पीयर के साथ भी कंपेयर करोगे कि पीयर ग्रुप ने कैसे परफॉर्म किया, राइट? तो ये सब चीज आप नोट करोगे व्हेन यू आर लुकिंग एट फंड्स परफॉर्मेंस, राइट? देन कम्स फंड्स पोर्टफोलियो. सो व्हाट इज फंड्स पोर्टफोलियो? इट सिंपली टेल्स यू व्हाट अबाउट द पोर्टफोलियो, राइट? दिस हैज टू बी इवैल्यूएटेड कि एक रिटर्न देने के लिए कितना रिस्क लिया है ए फंड मैनेजर, राइट? What is the risk that a fund manager is taking? Is it concentrated to particular stock? Is it concentrated to particular sector, है ना? Or is it concentrated to particular segment, right? How much is the cash held? Or what is the conviction that a fund manager is having for holding a particular stock or a particular sector? ये सारा कुछ कंसिडर करते हैं जब हम फंड्स पोर्टफोलियो इवैल्यूएट करता है, तो राइट? देन कम्स फंड्स एज. फंड्स एज मतलब कितना पुराना है फंड, राइट? A new fund managed by a portfolio manager, what it says is it lack the track record, है ना? So आप इट्स लाइक आपके पास उसका पुराना परफॉर्मेंस है, आपको जब पता चलता है कि हाँ ये कब से मतलब कैसे मैनेज कर रहा है, देन यू ऑल्सो गेट ए कॉन्फिडेंस कि हाँ ये काफी टाइम से टिका है, ये अच्छा चल रहा है. देन यू गेट दैट कॉन्फिडेंस एंड यू पुट. फॉर एग्जाम्पल निपॉन इंडिया ग्रोथ फंड, 30 years हो गए फंड को. निपॉन इंडिया विजन फंड, 30 years ऑलमोस्ट हो गए वो फंड को भी, राइट? दैट गिव्स यू अ सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी दैट हाँ ये काफी टाइम से है and it has been doing well, right? So funds age also matters when uh, selecting the funds. Just a minute. Now fund size. What fund size tell you कि fund size आपको ये बताता है कि इसमें कितना बड़ा है और कितना कितना बड़ा फंड मैनेज कर रहा है, राइट? Now again we need to consider this with respect to the proposed investment universe, है ना? So equity fund, they tend to invest into large cap stocks. A large fund size may have an advantage, while a sector fund or a mid cap fund, they will have limited investment options, okay? So a large fund size may be disadvantage in that case, right? So a large fund size will allow better diversification and at the same time kahin na kahin aapko you will get that economies of scale, right? A small fund size on the other hand, they are more flexible, and at the same time they are also have that they will be able to have advantage over a market opportunities, है ना? तो फंड मैनेजर के पास ये ऑप्शन तो नहीं रहता है कि बॉस आप कैश में रुको, राइट? तो market, let's say, is not a favorable one, they cannot stay put in cash, right? So these kind of disadvantages are there when it comes to a large fund size and a small fund size. Right? Now coming to portfolio turnover, basically, uh, whenever there is a purchase or whenever there is a sale of stocks, right? कहीं ना कहीं there is a brokerage cost for that scheme, है ना? अगर ये फ्रीक्वेंट चर्निंग हो रहा है पोर्टफोलियो में, तो कहीं ना कहीं ये ब्रोकिंग कॉस्ट तो बढ़ाते ही है. एट द सेम टाइम इट ऑल्सो टेल्स यू कि बॉस ये इन्वेस्टमेंट मैनेजमेंट का जो डिसीजन है दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट स्टेडी, राइट? So that is why we take a ratio into consideration that is called portfolio turnover ratio, right? How do we calculate? This is calculated as a value of purchase and sale of securities during a period. Then you divide that by average size of the net asset of the scheme. Okay. So आप value of purchase and sale को देखा जाता है, right? To that you consider what is the average size of the net asset of the scheme. Okay. Now again, portfolio turnover, this need to be viewed in light of the investment style. इन्वेस्टमेंट स्टाइल भी देखना बहुत जरूरी है, राइट? क्योंकि हाँ, उस हिसाब से ही इसमें पोर्टफोलियो churning and all will happen. Okay, let me go a little fast. I think this is all, this is important. Do's and don'ts while selecting a mutual fund. Please याद रखना, everything should be in favor of the investor. आप कोई भी अनएथिकल प्रैक्टिस तो 100% फॉलो नहीं करोगे, करेक्ट? You will stick to investors need, you will stick to investors asset allocation, you will not chase past performance, क्योंकि पास्ट परफॉर्मेंस हम एक डिस्क्लेमर हमेशा लिख के लाते हैं, लिखते ही है ना, पास्ट परफॉर्मेंस में और मे नॉट बी सस्टेन्ड इन फ्यूचर, राइट? तो ये भी आपको याद रखना है, राइट? अंडरस्टैंडिंग द इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड द इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी ऑफ द स्कीम. आप स्कीम का इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव एंड स्ट्रैटेजी देख के ही इन्वेस्ट कराओगे, राइट? आपको टैक्सेशन ध्यान रखना होगा, राइट? कहीं ना कहीं एक प्रॉपर फंड सिलेक्शन, ये सारा प्रोसेस के थ्रू you should be able to do it. So this is about our 12th chapter. This is fairly simple but very very important chapter. So इसमें से मैं कुछ questions पूछूं, चलेगा? Just a quick check about how much you all understood. Okay. So I am just putting the question in the chat box. The answer is false. Passive funds are safe as a NAV of such funds do not go down even when the respective market falls. The answer is false, not A. Diksha, I'll put one last question and then we will go to the next chapter. D, C, B, A. I think you have answered for all the questions. The last answer is guilt fund. Yeah, guilt fund is answer. Well, just give me a minute. I'm just taking the chapter for the next we will cover. So we will now cover 5th chapter. Okay. Please bear with me. I'm going up and down in the chapter. I want to cover the most important one so that at least you'll all pass. You know, 50% is a passing, and we need to get that 50% minimum. You know, above everything is very nice, happy. Below that is just not acceptable. You know, so इसके लिए हम just trying that maximum हम important chapters cover करें. What intervals? No, there is no interval. Any number of time you can attempt. But please, sir, this is the most easiest exam of all. No worries, no worries. So, good part is ये exam में आपको negative marking नहीं है, right? So, this is the easiest among all. So, सर आप तो आराम से पास हो जाएंगे, डोंट वरी. जो हमने कवर किया वो चैप्टर्स भी आप अगर अच्छे से करके जाओगे, दैट्स इट. मैं नहीं बता रही हूँ कि आपको पूरे चैप्टर पढ़ो. अगर आप ये पूरे ही जो हमने कवर किया वो भी करोगे, आराम से आप क्लियर हो जाओ. ओके. I'm giving you, I think I'm giving almost all the easy tricks as to what to be done and all. You know? So let's cover this chapter. This is very, very important chapter. Again, 10 to 12 marks come from this chapter. Okay. तो पहले मैं आपको ना एक बेसिक कंसेप्ट समझाती हूँ. Then we will go ahead with the chapter. Okay. So first of all, there are few mandatory documents. मेरा आंसर ठीक था. Oh, I had already said all the answers. I don't know. आपने last one was guilt. Guilt fund was the answer. 1 minute. I'll just go to the questions again. इसके पहले वाला फॉल्स था. देखो हर फंड तो गिर सकता है. पैसिव फंड जरूरी नहीं है कि सेफ ही है. When market fall, that will also fall. इसके पहले the answer was multi cap. और क्या बचा क्वेश्चन बचा. हाँ, that's it. You know, so these were the questions that we have asked. Yeah. So there are few documents which are mandatory. मतलब ये AMC को पब्लिश करना ही पड़ेगा. So one is scheme information document, SID जिसको बोलते हैं. Another is SAI, statement of additional information. And third is key information document, key information memorandum, KIM जिसको बोलते हैं. And plus there are few non-mandatory documents also which AMCs publish. Okay. अब याद रखना, ये चैप्टर अगर आप ऐसे ही रीड करने जाओगे ना, ट्रस्ट मी आप ये कभी पढ़ नहीं पाओगे. आपको ये कंफ्यूजन रहेगा ही रहेगा. ये SID में आएगा कि SAI में आएगा, आप सोचते ही रह जाओ. तो मैं इसको समझने के लिए एक बहुत इजी ट्रिक बताती हूँ हमेशा. थोड़ा सा नुस्खा है आपको सिर्फ ये समझने के लिए. ओके, प्लीज डोंट कोट मी एनीवेयर. ओके. सो व्हाट इट इज लेट्स से again a disclaimer, I am not at all religious biased. In fact, I am a person, whoever knows me will say that I am very neutral in terms of any religion, है ना. बट ये सिर्फ समझने के लिए. और हाँ, मतलब मैं बिल्कुल रिलीजियस बायस नहीं हूँ, राइट. ये सिर्फ समझने के लिए मैं एक नुस्खा निकाला है जिससे थोड़ा सा इजी हो गया है, राइट. So that is why I am giving this example. Nothing against any religion. Okay. So how do I remember is, right? अगर आप ये ऐसे रीड करने जाओगे तो यू विल नॉट अंडरस्टैंड. तो इसके लिए समझने के लिए बेस्ट तरीका मैंने ये निकाला है. तो SAI जो है, SAI मतलब साई, है ना. तो हम बोलते हैं ना साई भगवान, सबका भगवान एक, है ना. साई बाबा का एक है ना, सबका मालिक एक करके, राइट. सो व्हेन इट इज साई, SAI, दैट मीन्स वो हर इसके लिए कॉमन है. ओके. तो साई जो है एक AMC का एक ही होगा और वो हर स्कीम के लिए कॉमन, विच इज कॉल्ड स्टेटमेंट ऑफ एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन, SAI. ये कॉमन ही होगा हर स्कीम, राइट. हर AMC के लिए एक होगा, राइट. लेकिन स्कीम इंफॉर्मेशन डॉक्यूमेंट जो है हर एक स्कीम के लिए अलग होगा. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, निपॉन इंडिया ग्रोथ फंड के लिए अलग SID होगा. निपॉन इंडिया विजन के लिए अलग SID होगा. निपॉन इंडिया फ्लेक्सी कैप के लिए अलग SID होगा. निपॉन इंडिया लार्ज कैप के लिए अलग SID होगा. लेकिन इन सबका कॉमन एक ही SAI होगा. ओके, अंडरस्टूड. जो SAI जो है वो सबका कॉमन ही. तो मतलब जो भी एएमसी के रिलेटेड इंफॉर्मेशन है आपको कहाँ मिलेगा, आपको एसएआई में मिलेगा। जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन स्कीम के रिलेटेड है, जैसे निपॉन इंडिया ग्रोथ फंड में इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है, तो आपको ये कहाँ मिलेगा, आपको मिलेगा ये एसआईडी में मिलेगा। निपॉन इंडिया का ट्रस्टीज कौन है, कहाँ पे मिलेगा, वो आपको मिलेगा एसएआई में। ऑल विथ मी, आई होप दिस इज क्लियर। अगर आपको इस तरीके से आप सोचोगे और समझोगे, फिर जो क्वेश्चंस हैं आप इसको आंसर कर पाओगे। अदरवाइज इट इज लिटरली वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट, एटलीस्ट मेरे लिए तो ये डिफिकल्ट हुआ था ये समझने के लिए, राइट। सो इफ यू थिंक ऑफ दिस वे, you will be able to understand this two documents better, SID and SAI. So these are two important documents. This is compulsory. Each AMC will have this, है ना, and it is mandatory that we have to publish this, right? हालांकि these are huge documents, almost 180 plus pages होते हैं, right? And this has to be published and it has there in all of our website also, है ना। ये दोनों separate document है। दो technically SAI is a part of SID, but both has to be given separate, has to be given. Both documents are prescribed in the format that is given by the SEBI, और ये सेबी को सबमिट भी करना जरूरी है। प्लीज रिमेंबर, सेबी जो है ये डॉक्यूमेंट को अप्रूव भी नहीं करती है, डिसअप्रूव भी नहीं करती। प्लीज रिमेंबर, सेबी ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स को अप्रूव भी नहीं करती है, डिसअप्रूव भी नहीं करती है। ये सिर्फ सेबी सिर्फ उसका ऑब्जर्वेशन देती है। ओके, the documents in the market are vetted by SEBI, not approved by SEBI. Please remember, ये एग्जाम में आता है। Okay, so all these documents are vetted by SEBI, but it doesn't approve or disapprove. Okay, this is very important from exam point of view. तो बेसिकली अगर एक इन्वेस्टर को कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए, राइट, वो आपको एसआईडी में भी मिल जाएगा, एसएआई में भी मिल जाएगा, राइट। तो कहीं ना कहीं दीज आर कॉल्ड एज ऑपरेटिंग डॉक्यूमेंट, जो वो प्रोडक्ट के बारे में बताया जाता है। तो जब इन्वेस्टर को कोई डिसीजन लेना है, मतलब कोई इन्फॉर्म्ड डिसीजन लेना है, आइडियली ये डॉक्यूमेंट रेफर कर सकता है, और इसमें बहुत ही सरल लैंग्वेज में दिया जाता है कि ये क्या, इस फंड के पीछे ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट। ओके, having said that, as I said, almost 150 180 pages का है। I really doubt how many people really read this. Okay, अब जब हमने समझा SAI क्या होता है, SID क्या होता है, so let's go into this. So SID जो होता है, it is about that particular scheme. वो पर्टिकुलर स्कीम के रिलेटेड आपको इंफॉर्मेशन मिलेगा। तो जब मैं एक पर्टिकुलर स्कीम में इन्वेस्ट कर रही हूँ, तो आइडियली मुझे ये देखना चाहिए, राइट, इसमें क्या क्या होगा, इसका कंटेंट क्या क्या होगा, कहीं ना कहीं। सो डोंट गो टू बाय हार्ट दिस थिंग, बिकॉज आपको ये बाय हार्ट करने जाओगे तो ये बहुत ज्यादा डिफिकल्ट होगा। जो मैंने आपको बताया, एसएआई मतलब सबका भगवान ही, मतलब हर एक एएमसी का एक एसएआई। एसआईडी मतलब स्कीम के रिलेटेड डॉक्यूमेंट्स होगा, राइट। उस हिसाब से आप सोच के अगर आंसर करोगे, यू विल बी एबल टू गेट दिस 10 मार्क्स, अदरवाइज यू विल नॉट, है ना। तो स्कीम में क्या क्या होगा, स्कीम का हाईलाइट क्या है, उसका जो उसका जो रिस्क फैक्टर्स क्या है, ड्यू डिलिजेंस सर्टिफिकेट्स होगा, उसका नेम एंड टाइप ऑफ स्कीम होगा, इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या होगा, एसेट एलोकेशन पैटर्न क्या होगा, कहाँ पे ये स्कीम इन्वेस्ट करने वाली है, इसका बेंचमार्क कौन सा है, फंड मैनेजर कौन होगा। सो ये सब आपको कहाँ मिलेगा, आपको कहीं ना कहीं SID में मिलेगा। ओके, ऑल विथ मी। तो इसमें यूनिट होल्डर्स का राइट क्या है ना, अगर कुछ कंप्लेंट है तो कहाँ रख सकता है, ऑल दीज थिंग्स यू विल कम टू नो इन योर SID। ओके, SID में इसमें रिस्कोमीटर भी होगा। रिस्को ये भी एक क्वेश्चन आता है, तो आपको रिस्कोमीटर कहाँ पे मिलेगा, आपको SID में मिलेगा। ओके, ओके, तो प्लीज रिमेंबर ऑल दिस लिटिल बिट, यू नीड टू रिमेंबर। रिस्कोमीटर तो खैर बताया। हाँ, एक क्वेश्चन जो एग्जाम में 100% आता है, कम से कम 1 से 2 क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे आएगा कि अपडेट कब किया जाता है, when is these document updated is what is one of the question that comes in exam, है ना। इस पे आना ही आना है, तो आपको एक डेट दिया जाएगा और डेट के हिसाब से आपको पूछेगा so when this will be updated। okay, so please remember, I have tried to put that in one place itself. So this will make it easier for all of you to remember it कि कब उसको अपडेट करता है। ओके, अगर स्कीम लॉन्च हुआ इन द फर्स्ट 6 month ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर, है ना, then the first update of SID is due within 3 months of the end of the financial year। okay, तो अभी हमने एग्जाम्पल दिया, लेट्स से मई 2020, मतलब फिनेंशियल ईयर मतलब अप्रैल से लेके नेक्स्ट मार्च तक, है ना। तो मई 2020 फर्स्ट 6 मंथ्स में आ गया, तो कब इसका अपडेट करेंगे, इज ड्यू विद इन द 3 months of the end of the financial year। एंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर मतलब मार्च एंड हो गया, अप्रैल मई जून, ठीक है। ये कैलकुलेशन में ये आपको क्वेश्चन आना ही आना है। ओके, अगर स्कीम लॉन्च होता है सेकेंड 6 मंथ्स में, सेकेंड 6 मंथ में मतलब मे बी टुवर्ड्स दिसंबर और मे बी टुवर्ड्स नवंबर, है ना, फिर क्या होगा, देन इसका जो अपडेट ड्यू है दैट इज विद इन द 3 months of the end of the next financial year। okay, thereafter SID is updated every year। please remember, SID is updated every year। okay, या जब कोई फंडामेंटल एट्रीब्यूट्स चेंज हुआ रहता है तब SID अपडेट। ओके, प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस। ये था SID। SID अगेन आई एम रिपीटिंग, इट इज विथ रेस्पेक्ट टू अ पर्टिकुलर स्कीम। ओके, नाउ SAI जो है, इट इज कॉमन टू ऑल द फंड, करेक्ट। It is about that particular mutual fund altogether, all the schemes that is offered by a mutual fund। तो SAI में जो फॉर एग्जांपल निपॉन इंडिया का है SAI, तो उसमें जो भी स्कीम्स म्यूचुअल निपॉन इंडिया का है वो कहीं ना कहीं आपको SAI में दिख जाएगा। ओके, तो इसमें क्या कंटेंट होना चाहिए, आइडियली इट इज अबाउट everything about that AMC, what is the name of the AMC, what is a mutual fund, what is the, who all are the trustee, fund manager कौन कौन सा है, ये सब आपको कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ पे मिल जाएगा। how to apply rights to the unit holder, right। ये जो लाइन है ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। any investor, if they want, they can ask for a printed copy of SAI। हालांकि कोई पूछता नहीं है, बट दे हैव अ राइट। अगर क्लाइंट ने डिमांड किया तो एज ए AMC वी आर सपोज टू गिव इट, राइट। SAI का डॉक्यूमेंट अगेन आई एम सेइंग इट इज अ ह्यूज डॉक्यूमेंट, बट अगर इन्वेस्टर ने मांगा तो हमें प्रिंट करके देना कंपल्सरी है। every mutual fund in our website we put this and this is downloadable। ये डाउनलोड करके आप देख सकते हो, राइट। आपको इसका डिटेल एम्फी वेबसाइट में भी मिल जाएगा, सारा म्यूचुअल फंड। ओके, इसका जो अपडेट है, दिस इज डन बाय द एंड ऑफ 3 months ऑफ एवरी फाइनेंशियल ईयर, राइट। जो भी चेंजेस हो रहा है, अगर सपोज कुछ भी उधर चेंजेस आया, लेट्स से मैंने कोई नया फंड लाया मेरे फंड स्कीम मेरे AMC में, तो वो एज एंड व्हेन जब भी फंड आता है तब वो अपडेट करना जरूरी। या सो दिस वाज अबाउट SAI एंड SID। नाउ अब ये दोनों डॉक्यूमेंट जो है, एज आई सेड, इट इज ह्यूज। सो मतलब 150 प्लस, कोई पढ़ने वाला नहीं है। क्लाइंट के लिए भी ये बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, आपके लिए भी डिफिकल्ट है। तो इसका एक शॉर्ट वर्जन, सॉरी, जिसको बोलते हैं किम, की इंफॉर्मेशन मेमोरेंडम, ओके। इसका जो एब्रीवेटेड वर्जन जो है ये आपको किम में मिल जाएगा, राइट। तो इन्वेस्टर को सफिशिएंट इंफॉर्मेशन मिले करके there is a document called KIM which is circulated, and hear me this is very important। आपका जो एप्लीकेशन फॉर्म है उसके साथ मैंडेटरली ये सर्कुलेट करना जरूरी है, ओके। प्लीज रिमेंबर, विथ आर every application that is going, it is mandatory that a KIM is being circulated। इसमें क्या होगा? So all the documents, all the information related to the scheme, everything will be mentioned over here, है ना। तो ये आपको ध्यान रखना है। इस पूरे इसमें आपको क्या याद रखना है? एक है अपडेशन, ये कब अपडेट होता है, ये आपको याद रखना है। और हर एक इसमें क्या क्या इंक्लूडेड है। जैसे किम है, दिस इज अपडेटेड एटलीस्ट once in half year, okay, and within 1 month from the date, from the end of the respective half year, based on the relevant data and information, as at the end of September and March, and this shall be filed with SEBI going forward, like in an electronic mode is where the updation of KIM happens, okay, KIM, KIM happens, okay। साई का हमने देखा था, इसका जो रेगुलर अपडेट है, इट इज अपडेटेड एट द एंड ऑफ 3 months ऑफ एवरी फाइनेंशियल ईयर, और जब भी कोई नेसेसरी चेंजेस है तब आपको अपडेट करना जरूरी। सो दिस इज विथ रिगार्ड्स टू द अपडेशन, राइट। इसके अलावा देर आर फ्यू थिंग्स दैट आर डिस्क्लोज्ड ऑन अ रेगुलर बेसिस, ये हमने कवर किया। नॉन अदर मैंडेटरी इंफॉर्मेशन, जैसे डेली NAV डिस्क्लोज करना, टोटल एक्सपेंस रेशियो डिस्क्लोज करना, पोर्टफोलियो डिस्क्लोजर करना, फाइनेंशियल रिजल्ट डिस्क्लोज करना, एनुअल रिपोर्ट एंड रिलेटेड डिस्क्लोजर जो है वो देना जरूरी है। इसके अलावा there are some non-mandatory things that need to be disclosed। What is non-mandatory thing? मतलब सेबी की तरफ से कंपलसरी नहीं है कि बॉस आपको ये दिखाना ही है, बट आइडियली कहीं ना कहीं ये देते ही है। जैसे फैक्ट शीट, ओके। फैक्ट शीट इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पॉपुलर डॉक्यूमेंट फ्रॉम म्यूचुअल फंड, इज अ फैक्ट शीट। शायद आप लोग को SAI SID पता भी नहीं होगा, बट फैक्ट शीट तो आप लोगों ने भी शायद चेक किया ही होगा, करेक्ट। हर AMC अपना फैक्ट शीट ऑलमोस्ट एवरी मंथ we publish this, right, and kahin na kahin investor, they use it extensively, right। Even fund distributors, even fund rating agency, even research analysts, they also use this on a frequent basis। This is like a marketing and information documents। So जो भी अगेन सेबी का जो भी क्राइटेरिया है वो इस पे भी एप्लीकेबल है, राइट। यू कांट पब्लिश एनीथिंग जस्ट लाइक दैट। सो बेसिकली इसमें बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन रहता है एक स्कीम के बारे में, जैसे कब इसका इंसेप्शन डेट है, इसका AUM साइज क्या है, NAV क्या है, और बेंचमार्क के साथ कंपेयर किया जाता है। सो बेंचमार्क का परफॉर्मेंस कैसे है और ये फंड का परफॉर्मेंस कैसा है, राइट। टॉप 10 होल्डिंग्स दिया जाता है। इसमें सारे रेशियोज मोस्टली दिया रहता है, जैसे स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन हुआ, शार्प रेशियो हुआ, है ना। ये सारा कुछ आपको फैक्ट शीट में मिल जाए, है ना। दिस इज व्हाट इज गिवन इन द फैक्ट शीट, ओके। दैट्स इट। Understood? Any doubt in this chapter? Anyone? Very important chapter, थोड़ा theoretical है. I'm waiting for more answers from everyone. Okay, the correct answer for this is D. D is the correct answer. So the question is, please read scheme related documents carefully. Which document does this line refer to? The answer is SID and SAI. आप लोग पहले से ही ऑप्शन ए में SID दिया है तो आपने पहले ही मार्क किया. प्लीज रिमेंबर, पूरा पढ़ो. SID and audited balance sheet of an asset management company is what is written. Answer is wrong. जिन्होंने भी सी ऑप्शन दिया है उसमें SAI करेक्ट है, बट फैक्ट शीट भी है ना. तो करेक्ट फैक्ट शीट में ये नहीं लिखा रहता है प्लीज रीड द स्कीम ऑफ related documents carefully, right? So please remember, read the question properly, read the options that are given to you properly, then answer. Okay, I'll give you one more question. Let me see. Only few people are answering. The correct answer is C. These two documents are prepared in the format prescribed by SEBI, not by. अरे डी तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता है. Each AMC is free to prepare. नहीं, वो तो बिल्कुल नहीं हो सकता. These documents are prepared in the format prescribed by SEBI. Please remember, SEBI vets this document, but SEBI doesn't approve or disapprove these documents. है ना? This is again very important. Please remember it. I'll give you one more question. Updation पे 100% आपको question आएगा. So how the type of questions that comes is, I'll just put it in the question over here. Oh, sorry. I wrote the same question one more time. Yes, it is updated once in every 6 months. What is this false? There's no true false. It is updated once in every 6 months. Yeah. So before we go to the next question, next chapter, I'm sharing a QR code. Okay. I would request all of you to give the feedback on the session that we have conducted today and the last Saturday. Just give me a minute. I'm just sharing the feedback. Hold on. So I have shared a screen. There is a feedback that will be coming. There will be a QR code that will be coming. Please give your feedback. It's very important for me, right? To improvise a session further. Please give your feedback. And in the program, you need to select NISM 5A. If you are not able to do with your phone camera, please please go to Chrome, and in Chrome there is a camera. When you click on that, you will get the details. So ARN number you can put at 01. How to give? Okay. So 1, you can go to your camera, right? And when you switch on the camera, there will be a form that will come. You can click on that, you will get detail. Okay. Other is, you can go to Chrome. Chrome में आप जाइए. Chrome में जाएगा तो Chrome में एक कैमरा रहता है. Chrome का कैमरा में आप क्लिक करते हो तो एक फॉर्म ओपन होता है. Once you have done, please put over here program name NISM 5A. ARN number put 01. Program name NISM 5A. ARN number, any number you just put 01 or 123 or whatever. Thank you, Sujoy. Others, please put your. Once you submit your feedback, please put over here. Others, please do fast so that we can take one last chapter and we'll end it. Please, once you finish, please put on the submit. Others, please put fast. We'll take one last chapter. I'm just explaining you from the exam point of view what is important. I'm not covering the entire thing because that would be too much. You know? that is on taxation. Okay. So first of all, taxation, remember, we need to understand the equity taxation and other taxation. Okay. So in equity, one second, let me stop sharing the screen. Okay. So in equity, uh, the taxation is what we have to see whether it is done for a long term or a short term. So how do we define that? If the investment is less than 12 months, then it is considered as a short term capital gain. Less than 1 month investment is there, it is considered as short term capital gain. If it is more than 1 year, then it is considered as more than 12 months, then it is considered as long term capital gain. You know? So the taxation will be based on this, right? So short term capital gain for equity is 20%, and for long term capital gain, it is 12.5%. This is one thing that you need to remember. Second thing that you need to remember is uh, what happens for ELSS. For ELSS, if a person is putting money into ELSS, then what happens is he get a tax benefit under Section 80C, and uh, up to 1.5 lakh. However, there is a lock-in period of 3 years. Okay, please remember that this comes in exam. On ELSS, at least there will be one question that will be there on ELSS. Remember that it comes in exam. You know. So I explained you about equity taxation, and I explained you about ELSS. All the debt taxation, it will be as per the as per your tax slab. Okay, that is one another question that comes in exam. Okay, so from exam point of view, what comes, that's the only thing that I'm going to cover now. Okay, uh, so only for equity we need to take care of the um for the short term and long term, otherwise it is as per your tax slab. For an equity fund to be considered as equity, it will be uh, it has to be more than investment has to be uh, in equity, the investment has to be more than 65%, तो ही वो उसको इक्विटी टैक्सेशन में कंसिडर करेंगे हम, है ना. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस जो क्वेश्चन आता है, वन इज ऑन हाउ टू सेट ऑफ, है ना. सेट ऑफ पे क्वेश्चन आएगा और एक एसटीटी पे एक क्वेश्चन आएगा. एसटीटी में क्या आता है कि बेसिकली जब इन्वेस्टर जब सेल करता है इक्विटी यूनिट्स इन स्टॉक एक्सचेंज, राइट, और ऑफर देम फॉर रीपर्चेज ऑफ फंड, देन देयर इज दे इनकर एन एसटीटी, है ना. इस पे एक आता है, STT is not applicable on the purchase of equity units. Okay, purchase पे नहीं, sale पे लगता है. It is also not applicable on the transaction of debt securities in debt or debt mutual fund, है ना. तो वो भी आपको एक ध्यान रखना है. परचेज पे ही ये टैक्सेबल है, मतलब लगता है STT, सेल पे नहीं लगता है ना. एक ये आएगा. एटीसी का तो खैर मैंने बताया 1.5 लाख का ओल्ड टैक्स रिजीम में ही है, न्यू टैक्स रिजीम में आपको ये बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा, है ना. एक ये याद रखना है आपको. टीडीएस का आपको याद रखना है कि देयर इज नो टीडीएस ऑन रीपर्चेज प्रोड्यूस टू रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर, राइट. देयर इज नो टीडीएस ऑन रीपर्चेज प्रोड्यूस, वो आपको याद रखना है. थर्ड, आपको और फिर आपको क्या याद रखना है कि सेट ऑफ कैसे करेंगे. तो प्लीज रिमेंबर दिस. शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल लॉस जो है, दैट कैन बी सेट ऑफ अगेंस्ट द शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन एंड लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल. ओके, शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल लॉस जो है, इट कैन बी सेटल्ड अगेंस्ट शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन एंड लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल. लेकिन लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल लॉस जो है, इट कैन बी सेटल्ड ओनली विद द लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल गेन. इट कैन नॉट बी सेटल्ड विद लॉन्ग टर्म कैपिटल शॉर्ट टर्म कैपिटल गेन. ओके, आप इसको कैसे याद रखोगे? बेस्ट वे टू रिमेम्बर इज घर में छोटा भाई है, छोटा भाई बड़ा भाई से भी पैसा उधारी मांग सकता है, छोटे वाले से भी उधारी मांग सकता है ना। जो बड़ा भाई है वो छोटे वाले से उधारी नहीं मांगेंगे ना, करेक्ट। So this way, if you remember, you will be able to recall long-term capital loss can be set off only with the long-term capital gain. Yeah. So this is usually the question that comes in uh, in taxation. Apart from that, I have not seen major questions in taxation. You know, this is what you should remember. So almost we have come to an end of session. A quick, uh, gist of whatever we covered. We covered most of the major chapters. So इतना भी अगर आप पढ़ के जाओगे अच्छे से, है ना, तो आप पास हो जाओगे. Please remember, there is no negative marking. So please mark all the chapter, all the questions. Questions को attempt करना छोड़ना नहीं बिल्कुल भी. Read the questions couple of times, then mark it. No? Some questions might look little confusing, तो please आप read करना सारे questions को 2-3 बार. Options को भी थोड़ा read करना क्योंकि confusing लगेगा, right? 2-3 बार read करके ही आप करना, है ना. Otherwise, it's a very fairly simple paper. आप 100% पास हो जाओगे. थोड़ा सा स्टडी करना, रीड करना. I'm sure you will all clear. Yeah. So all the very best to all of you.